Flaconi.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of my 3-part series that looks back at the original Mass Effect trilogy story, characters, and now gameplay mechanics. Mass Effect Andromeda comes out on the 21st, so we are almost there, and I, for one, am thoroughly excited. Please note that this article and video will contain spoilers of the previous 3 Mass Effect games, so again, if you intend to play those games before playing Andromeda, I would recommend walking away. Okay. To make a truly great game, you need a combination of well-developed story and characters. But more is needed than just that. Even if a game has amazing characters and story, without the gameplay mechanics to make the game enjoyable, then I'm personally more likely to get frustrated and ditch the game, even if I really enjoy the story. Thankfully, BioWare has done a fantastic job of evolving the Mass Effect franchise's various gameplay mechanics between Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3, and they seem to have created an all-new system for Andromeda. When it comes to the original trilogy, I think the biggest differences between them is evident when looking at Mass Effect 1 versus Mass Effect 2 and 3, because so much has changed between the first and second games. While changes did occur between the second and third games, those changes were more like refinements of mechanics from Mass Effect 2, rather than an overhaul in certain mechanics like between Mass Effects 1 and 2. For starters, all 3 of the original games had you select what was essentially your class at the beginning. A soldier focused on the use of guns and heavy armor, while an adept was essentially a space wizard and focused primarily on the use of biotic abilities like warp or throw. You could also use various other abilities, but you carried this class with you throughout the entire game, and if you transferred a character from game to game like I did, you most likely kept your class the same. With Andromeda, things are a bit different. Instead of the traditional classes like before that shoehorned you into specific abilities, you can now freely choose any abilities you want without having a dedicated class. If you want some soldier or vanguard abilities, but also want to be able to hack an enemy turret, then go for it. Classes from previous games do appear in Andromeda, however, but in a different way. Now they're referred to as profiles, and you can switch between them on the fly. Depending on what skills you've unlocked, you'll be able to unlock different tiers for each profile. These profiles essentially add buffs to your currently existing abilities. So if you select a profile like Adept, you'll be granted quicker cooldowns on your biotic abilities, while selecting something like Infiltrator will give you more stealthy and tech options. If you want a more balanced approach, there's the newly added Explorer profile. I really like this idea, and the fact that you can switch between them is even better, offering you the ability to customize on the fly. So what about the combat itself? The combat mechanics in Mass Effect 1 were not nearly as fluid or intuitive as they were in Mass Effect 2 or 3. Going back and playing it again after having played 2 and 3, and not to mention a variety of other shooters, first or third person, since then, I've come to realize how clunky the combat really was. The cover system in all the games was sometimes frustrating because it often took forever for my character to figure out that they, should be taking cover, rather than standing there like a dumbass staring at a wall. And like any game with a cover system, I can't tell you how many times I've died because my character was essentially super glued to the damn wall, while 3 snipers and a Geth Colossus were staring at me like, "Hey bro," and then I'm dead. Fuck you. Thankfully, BioWare was able to refine and clean up the combat mechanics pretty significantly between Mass Effect 1 and 2. The shooting was smoother and the cover system was a bit more intuitive, allowing me to get behind crates and walls a bit quicker and easier. Still had trouble getting glued to cover sometimes and ended up dying as a result in many instances, but that kind of feels like the norm in many third-person cover-based shooters though. Whether I'm playing Gears of War or The Division, that super glue cover was often the death of me. Still though, it was very much improved between Mass Effects 1 and 2, and between 2 and 3 it was refined a bit more. Looks like Andromeda will also have that cover system in place, and I can only hope that they've cleaned it up and made it easier to get in and out of cover quickly. I don't need to be fighting with that invisible duct tape while a grenade is laughing at me 2 inches from my dick. So when it comes to weapons and biotics, in the first game you had infinite ammo for all of your weapons, but relied on dealing with overheating guns. I liked this mechanic for the most part, but early in the game it was frustrating because every single gun overheats stupidly fast. Only later in the game, when I've unlocked all the necessary gun skills, was able to fire for longer periods of time without having to worry about overheating. Conversely, Mass Effect 2 introduced ammo to the game, requiring you to pick up ammo from dead enemies. My biggest point of frustration here was the severe lack of ammo. Gathering heavy ammo was also frustrating because it always felt like I had just enough to fire once or twice at a major boss, and then that was pretty much it for the next 10 hours of the game. Since I generally played as a soldier throughout the series, guns were kind of my thing, so I'll say the ammo consumption bit was really annoying. And I continue to have this issue in Mass Effect 3, though it wasn't nearly as bad. Andromeda, however, is going to be combining the approach, which I think is really cool. You'll have human military weapons that require ammo, but you can also pick up and choose between different types of alien weapons that do the infinite ammo overheating thing that was done in the first game. Again, I like the options here. The biotic abilities in Mass Effect 1 were decent as well, but I felt like they were far more combat effective in Mass Effect 2 and 3. I always felt like I couldn't rely on biotics in the first game, but in 2 and 3 I had little black holes floating all over the place, tossed out by my allies most of the time since I was generally playing as a soldier. From what videos I have seen from Mass Effect Andromeda, they look to be even more refined and more useful as a combat approach. And lastly, we have the dialogue system. Frankly, I don't feel like it changed a whole lot between Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3, other than the general layout and look of the dialogue wheel from game to game. Each game had a pretty similar system where you had the normal responses during chat sessions with other characters, but you also had the Paragon and Renegade options. Basically, blue equals good, red equals bad, or Renegade in this case. Pretty straightforward and didn't really change much from 1 to 3. Unlike the Dragon Age series, where the dialogue system is dramatically different from Origins, Dragon Age 2, and in Inquisition. A particularly enjoyable mechanic, though, was the ability to do Paragon or Renegade interrupt options during dialogue with other characters. This allowed you to interrupt whatever was being said or whatever was being done with either diplomacy and tactics with Paragon, or a punch to the face to end a conversation as a Renegade. Good times. Now, Andromeda takes a much different approach when it comes to a dialogue choice system here. Instead of Paragon and Renegade options, you now had agree, disagree that essentially makes you choose. This isn't the black and white approach of good guy versus bad guy, but a far more grayscale approach where there really isn't a right or wrong way to go. Simply choices and decisions that you'll have to live with and carry with you throughout your decision making in the game. I really like this approach since it makes the game far more realistic, although I will admit sometimes in real life I wish I had a Renegade prompt that allowed me to interrupt somebody with a punch to the face, making me seem like a badass in the process. Sadly, that would just make me an asshole in the real world, so yeah, probably shouldn't do that. Well, that about covers it for Mass Effect. What do you guys all think about the original trilogy's gameplay mechanics? Do you think BioWare is going to have improved them even more for Andromeda? I'm going to hold out hope because BioWare has done a pretty good job so far. Thank you all for sticking with me through these videos and articles. Please visit the Black Oni Collective on YouTube and check out the blackoni.com blog. And I will see you guys next time.